A new zombie thriller arrives in 2025. A whole city is suddenly struck by a zombie virus, leaving only a handful of survivors. But the most shocking part? Every newborn now carries the virus. Could this be the end of humanity? No time to waste, let's dive into the story. Since he can remember, young Mark has lived deep in an isolated jungle with his father. He has no playmates and no idea what the outside world looks like. His father, a man of few words, repeats the same warnings. The forest is full of zombies, and humans are even more dangerous than them. During the day, Mark's father goes hunting, leaving behind only a pistol for protection. With no one to talk to, Mark spends his childhood listening to music and reading his favorite storybook, one he has read so many times that its pages are worn out. The story tells of a fairy with magical powers, who bears a mysterious M mark on her arm. To Mark, this symbol represents both magic and his own identity. One day, while exploring the woods, Mark stumbles upon an old metal camper van. Afraid someone might be inside, he doesn't dare approach, but curiosity gets the best of him. The next morning, using the excuse of fetching water, he sneaks back to the van and carefully peeks inside. Everything inside is neatly arranged, with even children's toys scattered around, proof that someone lives there. Suddenly, a shadow moves in the darkness. Mark freezes in fear, but as the figure steps into the light, he realizes it's just a boy his age. Seeing the boy's friendly expression, Mark relaxes and even shares his headphones. At first, the other boy is startled, but as he listens to the beautiful music, a warm smile spreads across his face. The two quickly become friends. The boy, Mickey, may seem a little naive, but his kindness is genuine. Before parting, Mickey doesn't hesitate to give Mark his favorite toy as a gift. Mark is touched but soon feels a strange sensation, as if someone is watching him. On his way home, he tries to hide in the forest, but a woman suddenly stops him, holding a gun. However, when she notices the toy in Mark's hands, her expression softens. She gently tells him to hurry home and even gives him a small bag of wild fruits. Mark immediately realizes who she is, Mickey's mother. Watching them reunite with a loving embrace fills him with a sense of longing. Back home, Mark hides the toy carefully but forgets to fetch water, earning a scolding from his father. But instead of feeling upset, he surprises his father by hugging him tightly. The man, caught off guard, stiffly pushes him away. Over time, Mark crosses paths with Mickey's mother a few more times. Her warmth and kindness make him miss his own mother even more. One evening, during dinner, he finally gathers the courage to ask about her. But his question is met with an uneasy silence. Later that night, Mark secretly watches his father through the window. The man is rewatching old video recordings. The next day, just as his father heads out to hunt, strange growls and gunshots echo through the forest. Realizing something is wrong, his father tells him to hide before rushing off with his gun. Mark follows from a distance and sees Mickey's mother, badly wounded, crouched in the bushes. Before he can react, his father appears, raising his gun toward her. Shocked, Mark runs home and pretends to be asleep. That night, his father returns, acting tense and muttering, "They're coming." Mark has seen this behavior before. Pretending not to hear, he puts on his headphones, but his mind is racing with questions. When his father falls asleep, he sneaks over to the video player and watches the old recordings. The tapes show a happy family. Before Mark was even born, he had an older sister. But then, his mother's expression turns fearful. In the final video, she tells baby Mark, "I love you," before his father's furious voice interrupts, and the footage cuts off. A horrifying thought crosses Mark's mind. Did his father kill his mother? Fueled by a newfound defiance, he acts on impulse. He ties his father up, grabs his backpack, and escapes into the night. He rushes to find Mickey, hoping to leave together, but Mickey insists on waiting for his mother. Feeling guilty, Mark confesses the truth. Instead of getting angry, Mickey embraces him in a warm hug, the first real hug Mark has ever received. The two boys press on, but Mark suddenly stops. After years of living in danger, he has developed an instinct for sensing threats. He quickly pulls Mickey into hiding just as zombies emerge from the shadows. They run until they find an abandoned car and jump inside, but soon, they are surrounded by a horde of zombies, banging on the windows. Just when it seems hopeless, gunshots ring out one after another. The zombies drop one by one. Then, the car door swings open. It's Mark's father. Realizing his son was missing, the man had freed himself and tracked him down using his hunting skills. Just in time, he had arrived to save them. He hugs Mark tightly, relieved that he's safe. But the distant sounds of zombies force them to move quickly. Mark tries to bring Mickey along, but his father refuses. For the first time, Mark shouts in defiance. His father, shocked by his son's anger, hesitates. But the zombies are closing in. He shoves Mark into hiding and charges into battle. Mark watches in awe as his father fights fiercely, cutting through the zombies step by step, making his way toward Mickey's car. A new fire burns in Mark's heart, a spark of hope. Hope. Perhaps his father wasn't as evil as he had imagined. However, in the next moment, a zombie staggered toward him. It was too close, there was no time to escape. Trembling, he raised his sniper rifle. Hearing the gunshot, his father, worried about his son's safety, immediately turned and rushed up the mountain. But in his haste, he was caught off guard and tackled by a zombie. Struggling desperately, he managed to kill it. Without wasting a second, he sprinted to his son's side and, seeing that he was unharmed, finally breathed a sigh of relief. But Mark noticed the wound on his father's hand. It turned out that, while fighting off the zombie, his father had been bitten. Knowing he could no longer stay with his son, he took a deep breath and slowly stepped back to a safe distance, leaning against a withered tree. Feeling the virus spreading through his body, he hurriedly explained. That day, Mickey's mother had been bitten by a zombie. Afraid she would turn, he had no choice but to shoot her. Mark took out a picture of his mother. Is that how she died too? His father shook his head. Your mother was a fairy. Even if bitten, she wouldn't turn. Not long after the outbreak, she had been taken away by soldiers. Realizing he had wronged his father, Mark felt a deep regret. His father had only buried his love deep inside, but now, it was too late. The virus inside his father's body began to take over. With the last bit of his sanity, he angrily shouted for Mark to leave. The next moment, his eyes turned cloudy. As Mark found his friend Mickey inside a car, a heavy gunshot echoed from the mountain. He knew his father was gone. But inside, Mark felt a newfound determination. He had to find his mother. The two boys, both under 10 years old, wandered through the desolate wilderness, playing and laughing along the way. Before they knew it, they had reached the edge of a human settlement. Following the railway tracks, they spotted a middle-aged man basking in the sun. Hoping to get some food, they approached him. Upon hearing that Mark was heading to the fairy's fortress to find his mother, the man sighed in sorrow. He wished he could escort them, but he couldn't leave, his children had all turned. Unable to kill them, he had locked them in a cage instead. Looking at the two healthy boys, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions. Over the years, all the infected children had been virus carriers. Maybe these two held the key to a cure. After saying goodbye to the man, Mark and Mickey continued along the tracks. Soon, they discovered an abandoned train. Seeing such a massive machine for the first time, the boys were thrilled. They played around the locomotive before moving toward the train cars, only to accidentally stumble upon a horde of zombies crammed inside. Terrified, they turned to flee only to run straight into two armed men. Taken to an abandoned factory, the bespectacled leader was just as shocked to see two healthy children. Mickey, naive yet pure-hearted, caught his attention. The leader believed this boy was an angel sent to Earth and decided to keep him as the group's spiritual symbol. But for Mark, one symbol was enough. He ordered his execution. Just then, one of his subordinates noticed Mark's picture of his mother and, out of sympathy, had a change of heart. Meanwhile, the leader used the radio to call more people to join his group. After all, he had found a healthy child. But the kind-hearted subordinate took this chance to secretly release Mark. To him, every child that survived meant a little more hope for the world. Loyal to his friend, Mark refused to escape alone. While the bandits were distracted, he snuck into Mickey's room. Under the cover of darkness, they fled the hideout together. The next morning, when the bespectacled leader found his spiritual symbol gone, he didn't hesitate, he shot his subordinate dead. Meanwhile, Mark was scavenging for supplies in an abandoned building. For the first time in ages, he put on a clean set of clothes. As he was about to reunite with Mickey at the entrance, he saw the bespectacled man had tracked them down. A group of armed men surrounded Mickey, ready to hunt down Mark next. But just then, a drone appeared overhead, followed by a sudden burst of gunfire. The leader and his gang fell dead within moments. Mark rushed downstairs to find a group of soldiers emerging from behind cover. Just as he was about to reveal himself, Mickey shook his head, signaling him to stay hidden. But then, a soldier started heading toward Mark's hiding spot. At a critical moment, Mickey grabbed a fallen pistol and fired, drawing their attention. His sacrifice made the soldiers abandon their search. Mark collapsed to his knees in despair. He had lost his father. Now, he had lost his only friend. Mark recalled his father's warning: humans were far more terrifying than zombies. There was no fairy fortress. No kind, powerful fairy. Furious, Mark tore up the fairy tale book that had once carried his dreams. The only thing keeping him going now was finding his long-lost mother. Mark arrived in a ruined city. The once towering skyscrapers were now crumbling relics. The streets lay in eerie silence, filled only with the distant howls of the undead. Fear no longer held him back. Again and again, he dodged hordes of zombies, finally reaching the location where his mother had taken a photo. Without hesitation, he entered the building, searching room by room. At last, near a glass window, he saw the silhouette of a woman. Bathed in sunlight, she looked just like the woman in his mother's photo. Mark instinctively stepped forward, reaching out and gently embracing her. The woman didn't turn. Instead, she grabbed his hand and bit down hard. Mark staggered back in horror. She was no longer human. Tears streamed down his face. How he wished she was his mother. But now, his last hope was gone. Mark no longer knew where to go. Just then, a loud broadcast echoed from a nearby skyscraper. A virtual image gave a fiery speech, blaming the flood of refugees for the camp's downfall. The noise attracted a swarm of zombies, but Mark no longer cared. He had no home left. Putting on his headphones, he whispered a prayer. He didn't notice the bullets whizzing past. Zombies collapsed in droves. When he finally turned around, he saw dozens of red laser sights locked onto his body. Soldiers were clearing out the undead. Their commander spotted Mark's bite wound and immediately raised her gun. But Mark made no move to resist. Because standing before him was a woman. And all he wanted was a warm embrace. Mark! He immediately took off his mask, his eyes unknowingly filling with tears. He shouted, "This child has a mark." Then, he took Mark by the hand and led him out of the room. Although the film does not explain the origin of the mark, it is easy to guess that it is related to Mark's immune system. It is also likely that his mother served in the military. Throughout the movie, zombies are never shown directly. Instead, the main focus is on the young boy's emotional journey. The atmosphere is very heavy, and the emotions are portrayed with great depth. Sensitive viewers might find the film too intense to watch. That's all for today. See you in the next episode.